Hello, and welcome to another episode of Talking to Scientists. Today we have Tryn Conrad, who um, I met in Rochester working at Brand Networks as a software developer. At least that was the title that I understood at the time. So I'm going to
Ah,
turn it over so you can correct me and clarify who
yeah,
you are, what you do.
not quite.
Okay.
I'm not a software developer. I am a software quality assurance engineer. QA is generally the acronym that people use for it, and it's a somewhat unknown subset of working in tech that is also everywhere. What I do is and the short version is I break things.
Okay.
My job is to take whatever the developers have created and put it on my computer and see if I can make it crash. Make sure that it does everything it's supposed to do, that there's no typos, that it doesn't break when you put it on different browsers. I mean, there can be all sorts of stuff, but basically whatever the developers are doing to make it go, I try and make it stop.
So you're like a crash test dummy,
Yeah, pretty much.
but not a dummy, like a pretty smart crash test dummy,
I
crash test
try.
smarty.
Yeah, I try. Sometimes I'm a crash test dummy. It depends on what we're making and what kind of user I'm trying to pretend to be while I'm going through and using stuff the way that it's intended or not intended.
Okay,
Uh,
so
yeah.
that's a pretty abstract idea. So before we come back to that and kind of flesh that out more, let's go backwards a little bit of more time, learn a little bit more about you and where you're from.
Well, I actually grew up in Rochester, New York. I'm from Fairport. I graduated from high school there, and I went to college at SUNY New Paltz for liberal arts. I have a degree in political science.
Okay.
Uh, yeah. And I graduated in 2007, which, for those of you who are unaware, was the literal pit of the recession of the aughts. So there were no jobs available.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got a job eventually that was terrible, and the less said about it, the better. But while I was there, I realized that software QA was a thing that existed. It was something that was sort of introduced to me
Was
post
that,
college.
real quick, was that first job that you had, was that in political science?
No, no, it
Oh,
was
okay.
not.
So you actually, after you got
Yeah,
that degree, you kind of veered immediately, huh?
I got a degree that I promptly was never ever able to use immediately post college. I
Okay.
didn't realize when I was going to college that trying to get jobs in the political science field pretty much means you have to work unpaid for a while. Like you've got to take internships that pay absolutely nothing, and the hours are terrible, and I couldn't afford to do that because I need to be paid to live.
Yeah,
Uh,
because like that's what working adults have to do. There's very few of
yeah.
us that have that financial backing to just work for free for a couple years.
Yeah, so my first post college job was actually as a mortgage tax escrow researcher, uh, and it was the worst.
We're not even going to get into that because we,
No,
we we talk about scientists on the show.
yeah, no, this is the kind of job that you can end up in if you have no idea what else to do, and you just apply to literally everything on LinkedIn and cross your fingers and hope for the best.
So you said it was during this time that you realized like that quality assurance, software quality assurance was a thing. So before you knew where it was, knew what it was, how was it introduced to you?
I started doing it kind of by accident for that job. They brought in some new software that they wanted everybody to use, and I was on the beta team for it to write up the documentation on how to use it. And I started breaking it because my coworkers were idiots. So I would write up how to do it right, and then I would go through and do it wrong because they would all do it wrong, and then write up how to get out of the state that they got in. And this was apparently useful, so they kept me doing it. And I was talking to my boyfriend at the time, my husband now, and a couple of his coworkers. They were working for Xerox, and they were testing printers, hardware. And they said, that part of your job that seems to be the only part that you like, we do that all the time. Like, you can get paid to just do that. Like, really?
So
uh,
you
so so I
sorry, go
quit.
ahead.
I went to Xerox on a contract to start testing hardware for them. And then I realized I was good at it and that I liked it, and I just kind of kept on going. And now I'm in software instead of hardware because it pays better. But the idea of testing things to make sure that they work, that's pretty much universal.
Yeah, that's actually something that I've been trying to make more evident to students now is that in a lot of science fields, they're heavily regulated. So you have to get your bachelor's degree, then you have to take a test to say like, yes, I'm a competent mechanical engineer. And then you can start go looking for jobs and all these things. Like the process takes a long time. Even like as a civil engineer, when you first get hired, you have to work under a professional engineer, and then after a certain number of years, you have to take another test to prove that you know the standardization of the system. But software is a much more skills based industry. So it's like if you
Yep.
have the skills, we don't really care what degree you have. If you're good at it, we'll take you.
Yep. At this point, if you want to be a developer, a programmer, you probably need a degree just because there's so much available out there for people to
Mhm.
go to school for. But for QA, it's the Wild West. There is no degree in software QA. There's a variety of ways to end up in it, but none of them involve having like gone to college for it yet. I imagine that'll change in the next
Probably.
10 or 20 years, but right now, if you can get a couple of badly paid contract jobs doing it, which there's thousands of them out there. They can't get enough people into it. Throw those onto your resume, 1, 2, 3. Then by the time you hit your fourth one, they'll be offering you full time to do it with benefits and healthcare and all of that good stuff, which was what I was after. Something with some stability that I was decent at, that I'd be able to find jobs in. And there's a lot of jobs available in QA. We can't hire people. Like, we have openings every place I've ever worked, and we've had a hard time finding people to fill them.
So quality assurance, I worked for a very short time doing research as a forensic engineer, which was when like a bridge broke or a building failed, we would go do an analysis of like why the failure happened and then make recommendations about how to do it better next time. So it sounds like that's very similar to what you do, where you will take a software, you'll find out a way that it doesn't work very well, and then do you do any recommending of how to make it better, or do you just kind of like send it back and say, here's what I broke, this is what needs to be improved?
A little bit of both. I'm pretty involved with the team in terms of the developers and deciding what we're going to build and how we're going to build it. So up front, I've got the opportunity to say things like, I don't think this is going to work well, or I think this is going to be too complicated, or this is probably going to fail. And they can listen to me or not, depending on how strongly they feel about it. And then afterwards, if I have broken something really badly, I might make suggestions on how to do it better, if I have some suggestions. Or I might just say, this doesn't work, back to the drawing board. You're going to have to talk to the people requesting this feature and see what they want instead.
So a term that we hear a lot when people talk about software is like front end and back end. So like the front end being what a user interacts with, like us on our Zoom call right now is on the front end, and back end being someone who writes the code and designs how it's going to work. So where would you say that you fit in that like front end back end system?
I primarily fit into the front end. I'm mostly a manual tester, is what it's called, which means that I am physically picking up my keyboard and hitting buttons, or I do a lot of mobile phone testing. So I have a bunch of devices that I'll pick up and I'll hit all the buttons on that and then write down what I'm doing. But for the back end involvement, there's a whole field called automation testing, which I'm slowly learning as I go. If you're interested in programming and QA, that is where you want to be. That's where you're writing code to test their code.
Okay.
Yeah, very meta. It also pays really well, and nobody wants to do it, which is why why I've been learning it for the last few years, and now I can do it.
Why is that like a not highly desired field for engineers?
QA in general has a bit of a bad rap because there's a lot of it that's boring. Like, you're doing the same thing over and over again, and you're not always finding nifty, interesting little things that are broken. Like, there's some of it that's boring, that requires attention to detail, that you just kind of plod through and give your report. And when it comes to automation, you have to be a developer to do it, and most developers don't want to test other people's code. They want to write their own.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
Developers are very much like artists in some ways. They've a lot of them have kind of a temperament. They're very creative, and they don't want to be sitting there testing somebody else's code when they're entirely capable of writing their own. So they tend to
Mhm.
avoid automation QA, which is why there is so many job opportunities in it.
That's interesting. Okay, cool. Um, so we're like kind of circling around this. Can you give us like specific examples of like an app or a software that has been sent to you that you then broke? How did you break it? And then how did you suggest fixing it?
So I'm gonna go with the very first bug that I found when I got my first software QA job instead of hardware. This was at Brand Networks. It was my third day. Uh,
Nice.
and yeah,
Starting
yeah,
hot.
yeah, exactly. They had a. Am I allowed to talk about who hired us or not? We're gonna go with a
Sure.
large retailer, a national.
Here's the thing. I don't care. You can put whatever you want on my show. I guess it's like it's on your end if maybe I don't know if you signed an NDA or the company had an agreement of who they were working with or not. But
I'm not sure because it was 6 or 7 years ago. So I'm just going to go with a large national retailer
cool.
had hired Brand Networks to make a survey form. One of those standard things that you're going to send out to lots and lots of your customers. You know, how was your shopping experience? Did you find what you were looking for? How easy is it to use? You know, just basic little questions. We've all seen them.
Yeah.
And a comment box at the end of it. And I noticed that there was no character limit on the comment box. You know how normally it's you get 500
500
characters or
characters,
whatever.
1,000 characters. Yeah.
And just out of curiosity, I copy and pasted a 40,000 word novel into that comment box and hit enter. I crashed the entire database.
Okay.
It was fortunately a staging database. It wasn't live, it wasn't public, but I just brought the whole thing down. And I clearly remember the developer's face when I went up to tell him what I had done and what had happened, as he stared at me. He was like, but why did you do that? Like,
That's my job.
because somebody who is bored and annoyed at Walmart might do that.
Oh, what large national retailer was it?
National large retailer. Uh, yeah, might do that. And he just kind of sighed and he told me he'd fix it. And the next time I got a chance to look at it, there was a character limit. So
So those are little things that you have to look for, because
Mhm.
a lot of times when I try to explain to students that aren't into coding or programming what coding is, like what we see on TV is like blue lines on a black computer screen and someone ticky-tacking really quickly. And really what coding is a lot of is like,
Yeah.
where did the comma go? And yeah, so from your side, when you're on the front end of it, you get to like look for little nitty gritty things. You're like, oh, I
Mhm.
think someone might have made a mistake here, and try to dig
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, they forgot something or they didn't think about something. That's what happens a lot, is it didn't occur to them that something needed to be there. So I look at stuff and I think about what's normal, what do I expect to see, uh, you know, like, and what would a troll do? There's all of this is on the internet. There's a lot of trolls on the internet. In some
Yep.
ways, I'm being paid to be a troll.
So what are the like the kind of things that you look for? Like what are the red flags that when you're looking at a new program or a new piece of software that you're like looking for red flags that you know you can dig down on to find an issue with?
In that case, if it's something brand new that has never been tested before and it just sort of exists, I'll just go through it kind of ad hoc. I'll just click every single button first and then see what happens, and then I'll go talk to the developer. But most of the time, that's not what I'm working on. Most of the time, it's something that has a ticket behind it. There's a little thing, a write-up, a summary that says, we are adding a button. The button will say this. The button will be blue. And when you click it, this should happen. So I'll match it up against, like, is it blue? Does it say the right thing? And does the thing happen when it's supposed to?
Is it
Uh,
going to plan? Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And then I'll get creative and be like, okay, what happens if I click the button 6 times really fast? Does it crash? Sometimes that happens. You
This
know,
is
yeah.
I'm so glad you're saying all these things, because these are the kind of things that like the students have like 4-year-old iPads or like Lenovo notebooks from like 2008. So I don't know if they're that old, but they're not great. So that's like the common refrain if something isn't working is to like mash the button a bunch of times.
Yep.
So like I am constantly being like, stop doing that, like because you're just sending the same command 1,000 times. So this is the kind of thing that you test. Be like, can
Mhm.
we write a software where a frustrated user can smash the spacebar 7 times in a row and it still holds up?
Yep. Yeah, it's I generally have the philosophy that if it breaks, it's not the user's fault, it's the programmer's fault.
Okay,
We
good
didn't
philosophy to
think
have.
about it hard enough, and we should have.
Yeah. Okay. So so you said you were looking into learning automated quality assurance. Did I
Mhm.
phrase that correctly?
Yeah.
So how is that process going for you? Are you like taking classes? Are you learning from friends? Are you just kind of teaching yourself as you go?
I'm teaching myself a little bit. I'm learning a bunch from my coworkers. I've been kind of getting it a little bit at a time for the last few years at this point. So I can write a little bit of Java. I know about Selenium as the main automated testing framework that people use. I can pretty much get it to do things like open up a website, click on a couple of buttons, and then tell me if something failed. I'm not at full QA automation engineer status, but I'm about halfway there, pretty much.
So the end game of automated QA would be, instead of you opening up the software and clicking on things yourself, you would write a program so you could walk away from your computer and your
Yep.
computer would do the clicking, do the crashing, do the copy and pasting 40,000 word documents into the comment box, things like that.
Yep, and we've got some stuff that works like that now. The key point for it is for automated testing to take over what's known as regression testing. Regression testing is the most boring type of testing. It flat out, it just is. It's where you have, let's say you added a button to a pizza ordering site. Everything else was working. You just added, I don't know, something that lets you add a tip or something. Before you launch it with that button, you have to go through and check everything else that was previously working to make sure it is still working. So it's doing the same exact steps over and over and over. Every time you release, you order a pizza and you add a tip to it and you make sure that it sent the email verifying that the pizza was ordered. And it's the same. It's what computers were made for, is to do boring stuff for us over and over again. And that means that I have more time to do the interesting kind of testing where I am a jerk on purpose.
You're a little more creative. You get to be a
Yeah.
troll. Yeah. This sounds like a great outlet for people that have like pent up frustration that they can let out on things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes it is. It's
So like what kind of person would you suggest would go into this type of field?
people who like puzzles. I find looking through my feature set and trying to find bugs is a lot like playing Sudoku sometimes. Like there's always a bug. You just sort of have to logically go through every single combination until you find something that's a problem.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm also very good at editing. I'm good at adding on to other people's ideas. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm good at making something from scratch. I'm not the idea person in that way, but I'm really good at suggesting ways to improve stuff. So I work well with teams, and this is a niche that fits me pretty well for that kind of thing, because I'm never making anything from scratch. I'm always looking at what they've done and figuring out how it should be improved or fixed or changed, mild adjustments.
So when you I'm gonna go like way back in time, all the way back to when you were saying you were going to school for political science. Um, do you think that there's, so obviously you were interested in political science in some way, whether it be for social impact, you want to get into politics yourself, or have some kind of impact on the public sector. Um, is there a way that you were thinking of, can I, now that I have this new set of skills that I've been building for myself in this like alternate career path that I found, are you looking of a way to maybe you can bring that back around full circle to stuff that you were interested in when you were kind of coming of age, going into high school, going into college?
At first, I didn't think I would be able to. I thought that the tech industry and the politics would be completely separated. But a few years ago, 2016, yeah, it was about 2016. I had an ex-coworker who posted on Facebook about how he was doing volunteer work as a developer for a political not-for-profit called Vote.org that made software tools to help people vote. And my love for political science, I really just wanted to be efficient and help more people, and then discovered I couldn't do that the way I wanted to. So I contacted him and said, hey, do you need any volunteer QA? And he said, yes, thank God, we would love some. Introduced me to the person who was running the not-for-profit. She brought me on as a volunteer, and after 2 months, she came back to me and said, hey, could we have more of your time if we paid you? And that's how I started freelancing in the political sphere. And
Nice.
she moved on to a different organization called Vote America this year, and I did too. I'm still doing work for her for this election. Tonight, after we hang up, I'm going to be QAing a voter helpline, where if you text a number that says helpline, you'll get an automated response, and then you will be connected to a volunteer who will help you vote. I'm doing software QA, but also it's political, and I really like the fact that I was able to merge those. I didn't know that was possible at the time, but now that, I'm in my mid-30s, I've seen more of the tech sphere. I've realized that it's in everything. If you have a passion and you are not sure how to work with it, there is a company that is doing tech work in that. It might be a website, it might be a software tool, it might be an app, it might just be data management. Like, most things involve a lot of data, and you need developers, QA, project managers, you need tech involved with all of that. So
Hmm.
you can kind of take a computer degree and put it into any industry you want if you've got a focus.
That's awesome. This has been, well, you said you have some volunteer work to do when you've already run about 20 minutes, almost
Yeah,
25 minutes now.
it's not volunteer anymore
Well,
because
right.
they
It's
pay me
not
for
volunteer
it,
anymore.
but
It's freelance work. Yeah.
yeah.
But hey, you got to get that paper. Um,
Yep.
so I'm gonna thank you for being here. This was an awesome interview. I learned a lot about software quality assurance, like I did right now, and hopefully I'll be able to pass this on to some students that are interested in coding and some software. Maybe give them some ideas of how they can marry different interests from different parts of their life and put them together. So thank you so much for spending this time with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, that's good. For your students, my company, my full-time one, Visual DX, they do medical software. We are at RIT and other places every year looking for interns for both software QA and developers. Sometimes software QA is the fastest way into a company for an internship, and you can turn into a developer after that. Just letting people know.
Hot tips. This is the things we need. These are the kind of information that you don't get in high school. And
I,
like, I'm a high school teacher. I love teaching, but I also recognize that it's very tracked in high school. Like, you take living environment, then you take earth science, then you take chemistry. And if you're lucky and you have taken care of your core requirements, or like you don't want to take calculus, maybe you can fit in like a software class, or maybe you can fit in like a computer science class, um, like for one semester. But even when you do that, you're not really learning about like the greater possibilities that are out there within an industry. So I'm sure that this is like going to be new information for pretty much anybody that watches this video that's not already in software development
yeah,
or quality
pretty much.
assurance.
Totally unknown career path, but every single company has it. So
Yeah, and one of those things that like probably should be advertised more as a possibility.
be
Yeah,
nice.
yeah,
Have more
awesome.
coworkers.
Yeah, well, hopefully I'll maybe I'll be able to send some people your way.
All right. Thanks, Luke.
Thank you very much.